We're digging into an album quest.
That's right. It's less a standard review, more like a tournament bracket. The idea was to pit albums against each other in a sort of musical World Cup to find a personal champion. It forces some really unexpected comparisons.
Yeah, the method itself is quite something. You basically split your music library into random groups of 4, listen to them back to back, which is key, then rank them 1 to 4, and only the top 2 move on.
It really puts the albums under a microscope, doesn't it? Those back-to-back listens can highlight things you wouldn't normally notice.
Exactly. So our mission today is to explore the source material from one particularly surprising round. This was Group 180.
And the author even titled their notes for this round, "From Bloodhounds to Bloodsuckers, clearly nobody else read the script." Which, well, it gives you a clue about the outcome.
It certainly does. We need to unpack the thinking, the criteria that led to what some people, especially rock fans, might see as a baffling result.
Okay, so let's lay out the contenders in this very random Group 180. First up, Pearl Jam's huge debut, 10.
A classic, right? Then, completely different, #3 by the Irish band, The Script.
Then you've got the Bloodhound Gang with One Fierce Beer Coaster, late 90s humor rock, very distinct.
And finally, rounding it out, the soundtrack to The Lost Boys, the Various Artists compilation.
So yeah, a real grab bag. Grunge, 80s movie rock, pop rap, and novelty stuff. The core question for the author running this quest was basically, which of these holds up best as a complete package when you listen to them all together?
Coherence, value, enjoyment. Those seem to be the key things under scrutiny here.
Right. So let's start at the bottom. The one ranked #4 dismissed pretty quickly according to the notes. That was One Fierce Beer Coaster.
The Bloodhound Gang, described as a short-lived sideshow.
Yeah, the assessment seemed pretty straightforward. It's all about the gimmick, isn't it? The juvenile humor, the puerile lyrics.
The notes mention it actually has fewer skits than their earlier album, Use Your Fingers, but the, let's say, tone is the same.
Exactly. And there's that funny bit in the notes about the lyrics.
Oh yeah, the specific example of realizing you probably shouldn't be humming Kiss Me Where It Smells Funny within earshot of, well, anyone you respect.
Right. So less a musical failure, maybe, and more just its time has passed. Or maybe it just doesn't fit in a serious listening context like this quest demanded.
The summary was pretty clear. Fun in places, maybe for a quick laugh.
Yeah.
But as a whole album package against the others, it just felt weak.
Didn't stand a chance in that back-to-back listening test, so rank #4. Gone.
Okay, so that one's out fast. Let's jump right to the winner. Rank #1. This is where the title of the author's notes really comes in. Clearly nobody else read the script.
Yes, the winner, advancing easily, was #3 by The Script.
Now the notes give some interesting context here. The author apparently only really knew the script from one song.
That's right, the single Hall of Fame, the one featuring will.i.am. They called it an excellent rap-hop ballad, and that was their main reference point going in.
Which is interesting because the album itself, well, first off, the title, #3, is called Largely Unimaginative.
Yeah, fair point. But the album delivers something maybe unexpected based on just that one single.
So what was the argument for it taking the top spot?
Structure and production, mainly. The notes really emphasize how well-structured it is, how polished the production sounds, very contemporary. But the big surprise for the author was the amount of rap.
Right, because Hall of Fame is more ballad-like, but the album itself has a lot more actual rapping from the frontman, Danny O'Donoghue.
Exactly. He handles both the pop vocals and the rap sections really competently. It's not just a pop band throwing in a rap verse. It's like integrated into their sound.
And this structure, this kind of switching back and forth, was seen as a major strength.
Yeah, the source material calls it a pop rap flip-flop. You get a straight pop song like 6 Degrees of Separation, then it switches to a really personal rap track like If You Could See Me Now.
But it feels coherent, not jarring.
Apparently not. The production style keeps it consistent. The notes say the structure keeps things interesting without feeling disjointed. It only really deviates once, apparently, with a track called Kaleidoscope that sounds more like U2.
Okay, so that consistent quality, the strong production across both pop and rap elements, that's what pushed it to #1 in this specific comparison.
Pretty much. In the context of listening to 4 very different albums back-to-back, #3 just felt like the most complete, well-put-together package, easily the strongest, according to the author.
Okay, so The Script wins, Bloodhound Gang is out. That leaves the battle for the second spot, the other album that advances.
And this is the big one. This pits the Lost Boys soundtrack against Pearl Jam's 10, an 80s compilation versus a 90s grunge touchstone.
Let's talk about the soundtrack first, The Lost Boys.
Yeah, huge 80s nostalgia factor here. The author clearly loves the movie, mentions it balances the fun and the scares really well.
You gotta love the quote they pulled. "You're a vampire, Michael, a blood-sucking vampire. Wait till Mom finds out."
It just sums up that vibe, doesn't it? And the music, according to the notes, absolutely nails that 80s sound. Positively dripping in it was the phrase. Lots of synths, lots of overdubs.
Very characteristic of the era.
Yeah,
And specific tracks stood out.
definitely. Lou Gramm's Lost in the Shadows, that big power anthem. And of course, the main theme, Cry Little Sister. Plus, mentions of strong vocals from Michael Hutchence and Jimmy Barnes on their tracks.
So even though it's various artists, the fact it's a soundtrack gives it a kind of built-in coherence, maybe? All filtered through that 80s movie aesthetic.
That seems to be exactly the point. It hangs together thematically. The notes say it was very enjoyable overall, very consistent.
And that consistency, that's what set up the big clash.
Clash with 10.
Yeah, right. Let's get to it. Pearl Jam's 10. Rank #3. It didn't advance. This is probably the point where some listeners might be throwing things.
Yeah, it's definitely the shock result of the group. 10 is iconic, foundational 90s rock, millions sold, and it lost out to an 80s movie soundtrack.
Okay, so we need the reasoning. The notes must explain this.
They do, and the author is very upfront about a potential bias. They explicitly state they came at Pearl Jam backwards.
Backwards, meaning...
Meaning they heard the later Pearl Jam albums first, the more maybe refined or structurally conventional ones, before they listened to the debut, 10.
Ah, okay. So they encountered the band's later sound before hearing the raw energy of the first album. That could definitely change your perspective, couldn't it?
Absolutely. If you're used to the more polished stuff, the debut might feel less consistent, maybe even a bit rough around the edges, which for people who heard it first might be part of the appeal.
But for this listener coming at it backwards, it led to some disappointment.
That's what the notes say. While 10 definitely has its moments, and you can't deny tracks like Alive or even Flow, the overall feeling was that the album's energy and tempo dropped off too often.
Interesting. So the huge singles are there, but maybe the deeper album tracks didn't maintain that same level. Tracks like Oceans or Release were mentioned as examples where the momentum flags.
Right. So it's less about the quality of the individual songs, maybe, and more about how it functions as an album in this back-to-back listening test. Consistency again.
And there was even a point about genre. The author didn't quite call it grunge.
Yeah, they described it as loose but hard rock, which maybe implies less focus or a less consistent attack compared to, say, Nirvana, or even compared to the tight structure of the Script album.
So those dips in energy, that looseness, became more obvious when listened to right after the others.
That seems to be the crux of it. And here's the killer line from the notes. The Lost Boys soundtrack was judged to have more coherence and just made for a better overall listen from start to finish.
Wow. So the soundtrack's consistency and probably the sheer enjoyment factor just edged it out.
It narrowly pipped 10 into second place, is the exact phrasing. The soundtrack's thematic unity beat the scattered brilliance of 10 in this specific context.
Okay, let's recap the final rankings for Group 180 then.
Number 1, advancing. #3 by the Script. Number 2, also advancing. The Lost Boys soundtrack. Number 3, eliminated. 10 by Pearl Jam. Number 4, eliminated. One Fierce Beer Coaster by the Bloodhound Gang.
So the takeaway here seems to be that for this listener, in this specific Album Quest format, things like critical acclaim, sales figures, even iconic status mattered less than, well, perceived coherence.
Yeah, and consistent structure, contemporary production.
Yep.
The script and the soundtrack, in their different ways, offered a more solid start-to-finish package than 10 did, despite its undeniable peaks.
That coherence argument really decided it. Both #3 and Lost Boys presented a very defined, consistent listening experience start to finish. 10, brilliant as it is in moments, felt less consistent in that flow.
Exactly. The dips were noticeable in that forced comparison setting.